Hello everyone, welcome back to the new video. Thank you so much for the response on the previous video, this new one. We're going to talk about the spin-offs of Crash Bandicoot. We're not going to talk about the main games yet, and by main games I mean the original trilogy made by Naughty Dog, because that's what Crash Bandicoot is for me, and I truly think it is. But there's also games that were developed not by Naughty Dog. And today we're going to look at which is the racing games. Now for some reason there are other kinds of Crash Bandicoot games, you know, there's like Mario Party clones and there's other adventure games of Crash, but there seems to be a theme with Crash and racing. So today we're going to look at some of those games and give my thoughts on them. The first Crash racing game that I played was Crash Team Racing for the PlayStation 1 back in 1999. This game was amazing for the time, and it's still full of nostalgia for me. This game was, well, at the time in 1997, Mario Kart 64 came out, and that kind of brought a new level to the racing game, those kind of racing games, because it lets you play 4-player multiplayer split screen, which at the time was the shit. Crash Team Racing, when it came out for the PlayStation 1 back in 1999, it came out. It had a selling point, which was it came with an extension which lets you play a 4-player split screen on the PlayStation 1, which was hardly heard of because the PlayStation 1 only had 2-player support. So that game was just, I remember playing it with a lot of my friends, and it was really, really fun. For those who don't know, after Crash Team Racing, that was the last game Naughty Dog produced of the Crash Bandicoot franchise. They lost the rights, not lost, but they had a contract where they were only allowed to have Crash for 5 years, even though Naughty Dog created Crash Bandicoot. As a kid, I knew none of this shit. I thought Naughty Dog was fully in control of every game Crash Bandicoot was ever made. And I thought they gave up on Crash because I remember playing in Jak and Daxter. Oh, they left Crash Bandicoot to do Jak and Daxter. That's normal. They do that. They used to do that when the PS3 came on. They stopped doing Jak and Daxter games. They started doing Uncharted, and now they're a big company. But anyway, so I was amazed one day when I went into the video game store and I found a brand new copy just came out of Crash Nitro Kart. That was the first game that officially made me realize Crash Bandicoot is no longer a PlayStation 1 mascot. You might be saying, well, what about Wrath of Cortex? Well, that's simple. I own Wrath of Cortex for the PS2. It was made by a different developer, sure, but I thought Crash Bandicoot was exclusive to PlayStation only. So when I saw Crash Nitro Kart for the Xbox, I bought it for the Xbox because I also owned an Xbox at the time. That was the first Crash game out of the PlayStation that I played, and that's where everything changed for me in terms of what I thought the future of Crash was going to be.
Crash Team Racing sells 1 million units. By 1999, the Crash franchise has generated more than $300 million. Not bad for a couple of kids from DC. Naughty Dog is eager to streamline their operations.
The beginning of Universal's relationship with Naughty Dog was Universal is a powerhouse in Hollywood. That was the spirit with which we joined Universal.
Management began to change at Universal, and they ended up in this odd middleman position where they had sold the rights of publishing to Sony, and Sony was doing the publishing, and we were doing the developing, and they were kind of there in the middle. With the exception of Mark, no one there knew a thing about games.
As we kept moving forward, Mark realized as well, that the best way to create games was to do the production at Naughty Dog and the publishing at Sony, and that Universal was not adding to the mix.
So we just kind of outgrew them.
Naughty Dog severs ties with Universal and Crash, the little guy that helped launch them.
I thank my lucky stars that we made the decision, hard as it was, to walk away from an absolute superstar and start something new.
Universal Interactive presents a turbocharged extravaganza by Vicarious Visions. Brace yourself for Crash Nitro Kart!
Crash Team Racing. In fact, I actually like it so much, I found one of the co-creators of Crash Bandicoot, and I told him how much I like Crash Nitro Kart, sorry. I told him how much I like Crash Nitro Kart. He's not happy with that game, but he's glad I like it. Crash Nitro Kart is a fun game, but it's nowhere near as perfect as TCR. It's kind of like an exact copy of the game. It's not really original, and it's well pulled off, and it is inventive, but it's basically another version of Mario Kart, you know, one of those Mario Kart clones. And maybe it worked for the time, because I played it for hours when I was a kid, but nowadays I don't feel like going back, and there's not much of multiplayer ability to go back to. Like, no one remembers this, and turns out it's just mediocre, so it's not as memorable as TCR. It came out for the Xbox, PlayStation 2, and Nintendo GameCube. There's even a version on Game Boy Advanced. But compared to Mario Kart Super Circuit, it's not as good as a portable kart racing game as that. Now, that racing game was cool, but they couldn't leave it alone. They decided to make a sequel, sort of. They made another racing game in 2005, another Crash Bandicoot racing game called Crash Tag Team Racing. And oh boy, that game just like Crash Tag Team Racing is actually a sequel to Crash Twinsanity, a game we'll get to in the next episode. It's one of the worst Crash games I've played so far, in the franchise at least. It's a weird game, it doesn't know what it wants to be. At one part it's a platformer where you're in a hub world, which is an amusement park, which is a weird stage for Crash to be in. Inside the amusement park there's each world, and each world has each stage, and the stages are completed by none other than being racing parts of the game. Yes, there's the racing in the game, and it's a weird kind of racing. You're confused with the other player, in this case the CPU, and I don't know, it's so like not fun and boring. I remember playing this on the PS2 back in the day when I got it, but honestly, it was never fun, and I was so embarrassed to play it. It's actually really cringy. I don't know anything that's going on. It has nothing to do with Crash Bandicoot. I had no idea what that game was. The racing game wasn't... It's actually a really fun game, except for the racing parts of the game.